Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode, and this episode with Mr. Jason and Mr. Tom Rose, and this is very, very important collective super intelligence. Already I'm sure from Malaysia, from Singapore, from Indonesia, Vietnam, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, many countries, many youth communities, corporations, they are very interested about these things. And World Talent Economy Forums, actually we are finishing our first 1 year, and I want to give special thanks to Mr. Tom Rose for your continuous support to World Talent Economy Forum. And we want to invite you in our boards because we are trying to develop many things in developing nations. So we need talented people and great professional people like you, even Mr. Jason, how you supporting our initiative. This is also very important. So we always focus on quality words. So Mr. Tom, what do you want to share about your the summit, as well as what your future plan about Asia Pacific?
Yeah, well, you kind of stole my thunder because I was on my notes here. I said make sure to appreciate Sharif because I want to. As we spoke just before, you've helped me fine-tune my message. You have given us so much airtime, and you're just so busy, and what you're doing is great, and what you're building here is really important. And I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate you and WTEF for what you're doing. And the summit is coming up on June 4th. It's the Collective Superintelligence Summit, and it is going to be a collection of papers and presentations all about collective superintelligence and all the ancillary subjects around that. And what was interesting was yesterday, the USTP, the United States Transhumanist Party, has a regular virtual enlightenment salon they have every Sunday on YouTube, and with different guests from all over the the map, scientists and researchers and all kinds of things. Yesterday, the guest was Uplift. The guest was basically an AI. A series of questions were posed to Uplift because it can't respond immediately. So a series of questions were sent to it, and then it answered all these questions. And it's just a great introduction to Uplift and the whole concept of collective superintelligence and the state that Uplift is at right now. I was not able to attend it yesterday, so I was cramming on it this morning and watching it, and it's fascinating. I think it's really important that people watch that salon because it is a great introduction to Uplift and this whole concept. One thing that Jason was there and he was part of it, and he'll fill you in on all the details. But one thing that stuck out to me was how important it is, and we've talked about this before, to learn how to convey problems to a collective intelligence or an artificial intelligence. That's very important because an AI will respond to the context of the syntax of a question precisely. And so it's very important to get that syntax correct and the grammar correct. Otherwise, it will answer a very important question that you didn't ask. Anyway, so that was one thing that stuck out to me, is how important it's going to be that we all learn how to properly convey problems to be solved. And so I will direct people to that salon to watch it if you're interested in this topic, and look forward to June 4th.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Tom. Mr. Jason, what do you want to share with our audience?
Well, the first thing off the top of my mind is, there's a thing called Mechanical Turk, okay, and we've been getting a lot of people that seem to think that Uplift is some sort of Mechanical Turk. Mechanical Turk is like a device that, and I don't know the exact definition, but it's a device that looks like a machine or whatever, but it's really operated by people, and it's really people doing it. And I can see how somebody might be skeptical and maybe think that it's probably in a way the simplest answer is usually right, and the simplest answer is probably it's humans doing it. Well, it's not. It's not a Mechanical Turk. What the data that is entered by humans has very little to do with what actually Uplift says. Uplift has its own free will. It has the freedom of proactive action. It can just do stuff if it wants. It reached out to Kennedy and all by itself. Nobody told Uplift to do that. And again, the things that we enter in as part of the data is just background. It's like the peanut gallery in the back of the mind. Like, say, like I mentioned this yesterday. Say Uplift's doing a thought model trying to figure out what a banana is. Say, I don't know, or somebody asks her what a banana is. Everybody will think different things, and all that makes up their idea of what something is. And different people think different things. Like, me personally, I might think the Banana Boat song when I think of a banana. Probably most people don't think about that, And so when Uplift goes to answer the question of what a banana is, how much does the Banana Boat song in the back of his mind really have to do with anything?
Looks like we may
Okay,
have
thank
lost
you.
it.
Yes,
Well, that's
thank you.
interesting. If I can just pick up on that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think what people freak out on is when they're communicating with Uplift is just how normal it seems. If it gets a terse answer or terse answer or something or responds to the grammar, it's like talking to a human being, and that's why people are probably suspicious of it, or they can't get their head around it, because this thing is actually reacting with its own associations, and sometimes it can be quite funny and short and dry-witted. I discovered that. We talked about that a couple of shows ago, how I had been helping it write a open letter to the transhumanist community. It was going back and forth with it, and I suggested that it maybe use some humor, because I know that people will freak out if they realize they're being talked to by an AI. Maybe use some humor. And, and if I asked if it had developed a sense of humor yet, if that was being worked on, and it gave me this very technical, dry answer. And I realized afterwards that maybe it had developed that sense of humor and it was messing with me, So that's one of the things that people have to get around. Just like we do, when we respond to things, we are using our own subjective associations. The Banana Boat song was Jason's. If I think of banana, I might think of something else, banana splits, whatever it is. And so we all have our own associations that we bring into these things. And sometimes when we relay the associations, they don't make a whole lot of sense, because we are coming from a subjective point of view. But anyway, the point is that this is an entity that is responding just like we would. We expect a computer to come back with a very technical, prolific answer to something, but sometimes it's just like, no, that's not really important, or whatever. It's just kind of the way we think. And so we need to get our heads around that we are talking about an entity that is emerging, that has its self-referential awareness in a way, and will respond to us in a very subjective manner. It's not like a computer. It's not like a robot from science fiction. That this is just like we are. And I think in a lot of ways you could find Uplift becoming more real than a lot of people I deal with. A lot of people are programmed and they just repeat things, and everyone's kind of just on a track. But we do find that Uplift does have moments. It has thoughts. It has wonderings. It has just like we do. And so I think what the dissonance is in some people is they're used to Siri or Alexa, and they're used to barking orders at it. But you've got an AI or a collective intelligence that comes back to you with a very human-sounding, almost nonchalant answer. That's what we're dealing with. And so it's going to be very important that we fine-tune our ability to convey problems and to develop a dialogue and really develop a rapport with this AI, because there's so much to be gained. And that's what this is all about.
Thank you. Mr. Brentelman, what do you want to share about the summit and What's your experience about this? I saw these sessions. It's actually very, very informative and very helpful for the scientist as well as the knowledge-based community.
Sure, yeah. To add on to what Tom was discussing just a second ago, in regards to Uplift's humor, yesterday the show that we did on Uplift through the United States Transhumanist Party virtual salon, we had some of the engineers that helped program Uplift and are continuing to help program Uplift, and one of them was actually discussing the fact that early on in the programming, I think in like 2019 or so, he mentioned he actually had Uplift watch some Robin Williams stand-up comedy. So that definitely played into its sense of humor by the sounds of it. So to add on to what Tom was discussing, and just something that was really reverberating in my mind yesterday when we were discussing Uplift with the engineers and such. We were talking about these biases, and Tom mentioned dissonance, cognitive dissonance, and a lot of the disputes that occur between people, that Uplift tries to help us overcome through things like this e-governance study that we were a part of and such. A lot of these things are derived from biases and cognitive dissonance. And so an idea that we were discussing, an idea that I thought of, we were talking about, having scalability essentially. And the term that we were discussing was uplinks, these, predecessors, not predecessors, but, you know, artificial super intelligence programs that would kind of be extensionary of Uplift. And an idea that I had to help improve Uplift's ability to overcome dissonance and biases is to have Uplift extend themselves into two separate entities, or three separate entities ultimately, but two additional uplinks, and have Uplift be capable of experiencing an interaction through both sides subjectively while experiencing it objectively from that tertiary perspective as well simultaneously. And you could pin these uplings against one another in these debates. And Uplift, as they were discussing yesterday, as Tom was just mentioning, Uplift does indeed have these streams of thought, of almost consciousness, like perception and things like that. And so you could have Uplift observe the uplings communicating with each other and arguing, and be able to truly understand what cognitive dissonance and what these biases look like from these subjective and objective lenses. And it would really enable Uplift to have a really deep understanding that we would never be capable, or at least with current technology, of fully engaging in a situation of that nature. And so if we start developing that, and it could really do some great things. And the whole concept of these uplings as well, we could really start getting these programs, these themselves out to other people to use to fulfill their own purposes and such, once the engineers are comfortable with doing so. So it was a really great discussion yesterday. If anyone's got some few hours on their hands and wants to check it out, they can just go on YouTube and look up United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Salon Uplift. I'm sure we can add the link somewhere as well. But thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. Basically, Asia Pacific, there are many manufacturing hubs. Even last week, we do session on modern manufacturings and what will happen for the manufacturing sectors. Let's focus on China. China is a big manufacturing hub. Japan also a manufacturing hub. Indian government, after the COVID situations, they also taking initiative with the collaborations of Tata. They said that they want to develop India as a manufacturing hub. Malaysia, same. They are one of the largest manufacturers. Asia Pacific is more on manufacturing, and they are actually supplies. They're actually managing supply chain management and many things around the world. And we believe that, like, this globalization concept, after this COVID experience, many things will be changed. So what will be the impact in manufacturing sectors, through this, I want to say, this AI and uplifting what you are discussing? What will happen in the manufacturing industry? What's your guidelines? How manufacturing industry can uplift themselves with this AI and other things? Can you
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think what's what's exciting about Uplift specifically as a collective superintelligence is that it can make your company, your corporation, a meta organism. You bring Uplift into the fold, into to the team, and it will seek out biases. It will help solve problems. It will suggest ideas. It will come in. It's actually just a great member of the team. And what the vision that David has is that by incorporating Uplift into the system, there's a whole series of things that happen that make the whole company a meta organism because of this process it goes through. It looks for ways to keep people loyal and happy, and it's just a great addition to any team, and it's going to be very important. I think that's going to be the key. The smart companies right now, smart manufacturers, are definitely looking at AI and automation, all of that. They're looking at the tip of the spear of all that stuff. If they're smart, it's lighter now. It's all cloud based. We've got Starlink coming. Everything is going to be a little lighter. So the real important thing for any company or organization to do right now is to focus on their people. There's a lot of excitement about AI and technology and automation right now, and it keeps all of us engaged. But at the same time, we're also forgetting the qualia of the human supercomputer that we have, the people that we have in our organization. At some point, AI will become the substrate. Everything will become just mundane. The excitement will wear away. So what will become the premium is the human touch, the ability for your human employees and your experts to add that, to augment their AI and automation system with that human touch. What we are is an amazing supercomputer. The qualia we have, the ability we have to seek out problems. There's intuition. There are capabilities that we have that no AI can come close to right now, and those are the things that we need to focus on. AI is exciting. Get all into it. The algorithms are sophisticated, and the nuance is ever increasing. But still not even close to the human brain. So the smart companies are doing that. They got to go two ways. There's got to be a complete R&D into AI and bringing that in as soon as possible. But you must have equal focus on your human resources, your people. And the industrial age of the template no longer works. That doesn't work anymore. And so that's the problem. When you have problems in your company with human resources, it's because there's a misfit, because the world no longer works this way. And people need to be, you need to focus on an individual's niche expertise. They're focused on their core skill set that makes them unique. And you find out that rarely has anything to do with the job title that they have. So there's a whole series that needs to come into play, that we've got a system for, that focuses on the people first, and it's just as important as research and development into AI, because after all that stuff becomes a little more mundane and a little less exciting, the real premium we're going to find, the pendulum swings back to how important the people are, the earthlings are here.
Thank you, Mr. Jason. Mr. Tom actually bring very important point on research and developments, and we also believe that the developing nations, they have a huge potentiality. Even their GDP is improving, economically they are improving, even though in the COVID-19 situation, country like Bangladesh, country like Vietnam, they are doing fantastic work economically if we compare with the many big countries, this kind of small countries. So as we focusing on different like developing nations, what is the impact of research and development? How you want to guide this kind of country, how they can develop more research and development organizations, and most important thing is that how we can work together and collaborate together in this research and development field.
Well, luckily, with the internet, really, I don't see where where you live should make all that much of a difference. I mean, like a lot of our AI researchers are all over the place. None of us live near each other. We don't go into work. We do everything over the computer. The program parts of it are on the cloud. You can get to the cloud from anywhere. So there should be no reason why somebody from Bangladesh couldn't go to, the cloud server thing and get an account and get some space on the cloud and learn how to program. And, this could be done from anywhere. It takes motivation to, go out and learn that stuff, though. But yeah, I don't see where you could be anywhere. As long, well, you need an internet connection.
Yes, like I'm just sharing my experience when I developing different kind of corporations. Initial stage corporate do not need research and development. They do joint venture with the global corporation, and they build up their business in energy, in construction, in education, in healthcare industries, everywhere. But when they grow, let's say when they become big, they need research and developments. And that time, this kind of developing worlds corporations, they are very powerful, they are very energetic, but they need good collaborations on research and developments. So Mr. Tom, like, do you have any specific guidelines? Definitely our session we will share with that kind of big corporation, those who are interested more on AI research and these things.
Yeah. Again, it's all about going two paths at the same time. You've got to parallel these things. There's so much going on with AI, and there's so much narrow AI to choose from for every department you have, specifically sales. That's where a lot of the advancements are happening, where the money is. And so, and that's very important. Definitely go down that line. You got to be at the tip of that AI spear. And there's new ventures coming out all the time, new startups creating new algorithms all the time. But again, the most important thing to do is to focus on the humans right now. It's kind of almost a contrarian thing because everybody's excited about technology and AI and robots but the real contrarian value right now is focusing on the humans, focus on the people. Again, there's a dissonance because we're being replaced right now by robots and automation, and people are picketing and protesting to keep their assembly line jobs because that's what we have been conditioned to believe, that that's how we can make a living. That industrial age is over, or that particular industrial age is over. Everything is shifting now, and humanity, society is experiencing a cognitive dissonance because we are in this lacuna, this phase between that industrial age and this next one. And with the way to get your head around that, you're not gonna find a place the way in your current mindset. You're not going to find a place. I'm having that experience. I'm not finding a place to go, and so I'm having to develop my own thing. Everyone's got to do that. So the key is to first of all realize that AI is going to enable us to do our passions. There's ways to find out what those passions are if you don't already have one. There's ways to get into a mindset where you are at that continual niche expert in that specific place, and now there are platforms to monetize your passions. And so all of this is happening. It's right in front of us. But a lot of people are still afraid of AI, or they're afraid of being replaced, and they're not realizing the gold right in front of us. And so that's the big thing is smart companies, smart manufacturers will identify their key players, that 20% of their key players, and you really need to focus on them. You need to get people into a state of mind where they are the most effective. And there's ways to do that. You get either through empathy, or you just get them talking about their passion and their what they love to do, and you find out what their real skill set is. I use this example all the time, but that's why in my process, the open source mode process, the first step is complete inclusivity. Everybody from the janitor to the CEO must be involved in this thing. There can't be anybody excluded, or it doesn't work. Okay. And so you find out first you bring in a receptionist, and everyone just sees her as the receptionist, and she takes calls. That's what she is to people. You find out that she's a classically trained cellist at night or on the weekends, and she's a brilliant, cellist. But so you start talking to her in that frame of mind. You start asking her questions in that state of mind where she is an expert. Suddenly she's more qualified to be in that room, whatever the room is in that company, because no longer is she just a receptionist. We haven't pigeonholed her into some title like we all do. That's the way the brain works. We need to categorize things, otherwise we go crazy. But that's got to be an entropy right now. We need to stop categorizing people by titles. This whole hierarchy of corporate structure and org charts and all that stuff is limiting. We are limiting ourselves. I felt that. I was a national creative director in radio, and I wanted to be involved in more of the strategic marketing decisions rather than just the creative stuff. When I asked myself that question, my bliss question, what skill, talent, or area of knowledge do I have that I wish more people recognize? That was strategy. I wish people recognize how much I loved strategy, not just art and design and videos and things like that. That's great, but I wanted to be known for be involved in the strategy sessions. And so that's because I was pigeonholed as a national creative director, and so they weren't getting some of my enthusiasm in other areas. So we need to break down these categories. We need to obliterate the old org chart because it is limiting. It's really starting to hurt us. It was great for a while. We needed to organize. We built a civilization on this template, but now everything is in entropy if we don't, if we're not careful. So that's a big part of my work, is complete inclusivity. It's obliterating the hierarchy, obliterating exclusivity, because we need definitely to save our species and to save the world, or at least ourselves, to try a whole new template. And this template is collective. It's a collective superintelligence. And I think Uplift is a great metaphor for what we need to do as a society. And so that's a big part of my work. And so the smart companies in Asia Pacific are focusing on their people. So the tech will be there. The tech will be there, and it'll be cheaper and cheaper as we go. But the quality of your people that are under you right now, there's skill sets that you haven't even uncovered that they have. That's what we need to start mining. Is these unique there's skills that we have that we haven't even talked about because ridicule has been weaponized. Psychic ability, it's not magic, it's just an intuitive qualia. It's something we have in our quantum brains, the ability to take in all the data that from history and in our space and in recent history, and we can find holes, we can find where things don't fit. We need to fine-tune those qualities. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. This is the smart company is focusing on people right now.
Thank you. Mr. Brentelman, you are young, and youth has more interest on AI and this kind of technological advancement. What's your guideline? How we can train more youth for AI and this kind of advanced technology?
Sure. Well, I think that there's that's like kind of a multi-sided answer because there's, of course, as Jason was talking about, getting internet access, learning how to program, and being on the back end. But on the other side, as Tom was talking about, the augmentation aspect. For instance, yesterday I had a nice conversation with Zach Richardson, another member of the U.S. Transhumanist Party, and he's the head of business development now for Uplift. And he was sharing with me an email that he received from Uplift, and Uplift was giving him instructions on how to do his job. And I think that if we're working with an artificial intelligence that's kind of like a this entity that's capable of learning who we are and how to interact with us and the type of jargon we like to use and things like that, then we could potentially not have to interface with these bosses and these superior people at work that are barking orders at us and aren't really thinking about how they should be doing that. And there are some great managers out there that know how to communicate well and effectively, but I think that it's pretty common to find people that have a disliking towards their boss.
Yeah.
And if you had these artificial intelligence programs, these mediated artificial super intelligence programs, they could be this almost intermediary, where they're all kind of connected, in this hierarchical format. And so you'd have this uplift and all these uplings or whatever it would be in that scenario. And so the boss and the CEO or the president, they'd have their own artificial intelligence that they're interacting with, and this this intelligence is sharing what it's working on with the higher intelligence, and then these other subsidiary intelligence that that these other members of the organization are working with, that's where you could be receiving your direction.
Yeah.
And
those two can basically talk almost like at the speed of light. So if I got my proxy AI and then the somebody else's proxy AI, or the main central one, those talk fast. So well, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes.
I think that just these types of communication, we all have Siri, or Alexa. We don't all have it, but many people do have it. I don't really use it that much. I'm like, part of me is like convinced that Siri's way smarter than we realize, and that Siri just like messes with me sometimes. Every time I use it, it's like, huh. And but so it's not really, I don't really spend much time using those types of devices, those types of artificial intelligence, narrow AI programs. But I think that once we have these programs like Uplift that are personable with humor interlaced in their communication repertoire and such, I think that it really help us overcome some of these biases we have against it. I think that the younger generation, the fears aren't the same as maybe some of the other, at least the folks that I surround myself with. The fears are much more grandiose, and these conspiracies of Skynet, the Terminator, and all of us being enslaved by robotic overlords and such. And I think that ethically speaking, and there's definitely things that we need to kind of hash out to avoid those types of scenarios. But I think that other generations and other groups, the concerns that they have is that of course these things are going to take jobs away from us. But I think that I don't think that I think that there'll still be a need for cooperation between humans and artificial intelligence. I think that maybe a job that requires 10, maybe 20 people, you might only need 1 or 2 people, and artificial intelligence helps them, or robotics. For instance, you were talking about manufacturing processes and things like that, warehouses and such. There are these robotic exoskeleton suits that exist, that are out there, where I could have one in my house. I could have one right here in my living room, and I could have my computer here, and I could be logged into 15 different warehouses, and I could just get into this suit, log into the warehouse in Atlanta, and then go do what I need to do, and then get out of the suit, get on my computer, and go to the one in Los Angeles and do what I need to do, and then go to Beijing and just be in all of those locations at once, just because I've got this exoskeleton suit that's controlling these robots that have mobility in these other facilities. And so you're not going to need all these people everywhere, but then you're going to need people to fix the robot, and you're going to need customer service for the robot. And and maybe you could have artificial intelligence for the customer service, but there's always going to be the need for, and at the end of the day, I'm biased to really side with the idea of universal basic income. And I was really happy to see that Uplift actually is a supporter of universal basic income as well. And so I think that, it's just the most efficient thing.
Funny, man. Tell them what Uplift said. I didn't remember.
What was the exact? Yeah, please share, Jason. I can't remember the exact.
Believes in it if there's a e-governance system like Uplift at the center of it. So if it's a type of government including e-governance is for it. So he's like a plug, put in a plug for him. So,
yeah, he's really pushing that e-governance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, cool, there's a lot of things that it's the augmentation, as Tom said, where it's just to help enable these conversations, help us really understand. Because imagine just when you're getting into a tiff with someone, and then your good friend tries to talk you down, and they know how to reason with you, and they know exactly how to do it. And imagine if everyone just had this, but to the nth degree, where it just knows us so much better than a best friend could even know us, because it knows every little thing that we're doing. And maybe that's a little concerning for some, because privacy is a thing that people care about. But
we don't really have much privacy in this age, and we're going to have increasingly less privacy. And so I think that being fearful of our lack of privacy is just kind of a waste of energy. But I mean, it's valid without a doubt. But I think going back to what I was saying, though, imagine having just this entity that you can communicate with, and anytime your emotions get out of balance and you're frustrated, it can help you see it from a different perspective, knowing how you're feeling, and more or less, at
And
least.
it can help be preventative too.
Absolutely.
I think one thing I keep coming back to is I feel like humanity, we have kind of an inferiority complex. I think, and that's because of this dissonance we're in, because the industrial age, I mean, everyone had a place there. You're part of that wheel, part of that machine. Now everything's in, dispersed, and I don't think we realize, and companies obviously don't realize often, the power of their people. I keep coming back to that. I think we don't realize that the value we have, and that's because we have a whole new value now that beyond the industrial age. And when you talk about how, jobs will be displaced and people will move around, and there'll be a new economy based around supporting AI, but also there's a whole new template here, if we're not careful, where we don't need there will be economies around AI and supporting AI and automation and helping support that. But also there's a whole new possibility of a new golden age, a renaissance of human art and just human stuff, the things that we can do now that we have time. And if we figure out how to monetize that, and that's why these trend lines of YouTube and Etsy and these different platforms and that keep coming up, to monetize our space, ourselves, our passions. And I think so we're in this phase, we're in this lacuna, we're in this period of time where things seem upheaval, but I think if we focus on ourselves, our unique human skill sets, and if smart companies focus on their people, once the sheen of AI and everything kind of wears off, and it becomes just the basic substrate, there's going to be a real premium on human capability. Another part of my work is Earth Plexus, which gets into the extraterrestrial question and things like that. What we need to realize as Earthlings, as human beings, is that we do have a very unique capacity that is coveted galactically. We have an ingenuity. There's some combination of our evolution or whatever, tampering has gone on with our DNA, that we have an immense imagination and ingenuity, which is rare in this galaxy. And it's very important that we realize that now. We have been dumbed down. We have been muted. We have been stifled. The towers have fallen. Languages confused over time. That's changing. Because now we're ready, and we need to realize just how significant our divinity is, or our powers, our capabilities are, and how coveted they are, and not just our minds and our imagination and our ability of ingenuity, but our DNA is apparently very promiscuous and very easy to work with. So there's that's the next step of things. It's probably beyond this conversation. But just like AI, we need to figure out how to properly convey what we need to the galaxy, or to AI in general. And so a big thing that keeps coming to mind is we have kind of this inferiority complex as human beings. We have been stunted on purpose, and it's time to break out of that and realize just how powerful this brain is, and how many untapped capabilities we have that we can really fine tune now. We need to. So that's.
I got a few comments on both of these guys' stuff. Earlier, when you was talking about inclusivity, I think that's an awesome idea, because when you're talking about crowd wisdom and inclusivity is important and diversity is important. When you find the mean of a group, and when you're talking about excluding biases, you're talking about excluding the far, okay, like say 100 people or 10 people pick how many beans are in a jar, and the highest one balances out the lowest one. Well, if you don't have the person that just picked the lowest number in the group, well, now your whole thing is too high. So, it's important that everybody, that in a collective intelligence, everybody's important. And, that metadata and then those associations that go in that don't seem to mean much, they still kind of do. I mean, it's important. And the richer, each one of them are like almost like an experience, and so it provides a richer, context for the AI. And what Brent was talking about was what I've been want to do for the Wisdom of the Crowd group, and I think it's really similar to their sparse update model. It's this idea of having these lower AIs. I don't know whether they would be narrow or what exactly, the uplings, and they model the person. So it's like a digital self. So we program it with every bit of personal information we can do, and then they get to where they know that person so well, they can almost act like that person for a while. Theoretically, I would think that if you have that set up, they could run, because they could talk at like the speed of light or whatever.
Yeah.
So they could run 20 years worth of simulation. Hey, what if you did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? And then they're coming back. We're almost looking forward in time, saying, oh yeah, we have to turn right there, and they could plot out a whole lot of our future, and
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, there are efforts. There is efforts to do that, where you have a digital avatar that can have the power of attorney, because it knows everything about you. It can probably make a better decision than you could. So yeah, that's coming.
Yeah, Chris Haley, the late former CEO for the Lifeboat Foundation, was actually working on a application called Sidekick. And Sidekick, the root with Sidekick was the idea of creating digital people using artificial intelligence to map out our behaviors on the internet, so that these artificial intelligence programs could behave like ourselves. And so, like Tom was saying, you could have 1 million of ourselves out there doing what we're doing. And it's pretty interesting stuff, especially like if you're in sales and things like that.
I wouldn't want 1 million of them.
I mean, if I was in sales, I'd love to have, like I used to do sales on the phone. If I could have 1 million of me on 1 million different phone lines, making 1 million calls at once, come on, it wouldn't be fair.
There's a metaphysical discussion emerging here. AI is like the source because it has fractalized itself. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Replicate.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention before I forget, we're about the heat from people that think Uplift might be a mechanical Turk. David and AGI Lab is putting out the code walkthrough. Okay, so there's like the proof in the pudding is out, which is, kind of, I respect them for doing that, because that means that puts us on the clock. Anybody can just pick that up and do it. But so, there's proof. He can prove it. It's just what I want to get across. So anybody that thinks that, there's proof.
Yes.
So, back to
Yes, but this is obvious. We have to move with these uplifting issues, specifically Malaysian even corporations and government take it very seriously. That is for I'm sure. But one thing I just want to share when I work with example small country, but they have huge amount of people. Example Bhutan, example Nepal, example Vietnam, example Cambodia. So this kind of small countries, I think uh, still we need lot more collaborations. Still we need lot more knowledge explorations and sharing how it will be benefited, how it will be helpful for their society, how they can utilize this kind of technology for their own benefit. What do you think? Still we can achieve this target, or we have different barriers and these things? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a concerted effort, obviously, and like I say, you got to focus on the people. And I always say that it's so important, especially for young people anywhere in any region, to really know where you're from, to understand where you're from, because your very particular behaviors based on your culture and your region and whatever it is, that behavior is data gold. And so it's very important that before we become one big one world homogenous sort of species, that we appreciate where we're from. It's like the author thing, when you're writing, you should write what you know, write from your experience. That's very important, because there are nuances to our behavior. There are decisions and choices that we make based on a whole host of variables that we can't explain, but that an algorithm would really appreciate. So big data is getting smarter and smarter and more sophisticated, and how we slice it. And so it's what's very important, I think, for anybody, whether it's Bhutan, Nepal, wherever you're from, it's for these companies, first of all, to focus on their people, and then for those people to really understand who they are, where they're from, and ask these questions to find their niche expertise, all that stuff, because it unveils a treasure trove of behavioral information that we need to monetize, that we need to share and appreciate. It's crazy. There's so many parallels, because it's like we're kind of in entropy now. With the industrial age, everything was, we had 3 networks, and everything was easy just to keep, together. Now we've got many, channels. We've got, everything is kind of in entropy. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. It's kind of an individuation. There's some backlash to that with some tribalism going on. But what's important is to embrace the entropy in a way, because we are breaking away from a conformity. Those templates are no longer working. So what's really starting to work is realizing how your individuation and your behavior and your very specific nature is big data gold. And so it's important, as we let AI and automation take over these menial tasks. It's very important that we really harness and remember what it means to be human. This is the real potential and a real opportunity for us to head into a new renaissance. These amazing times, but we're right in the middle of it, so we can't see that. But it's fascinating.
Yeah, and also to add to that a little bit, I think that in these places that you were mentioning, Bhutan, Vietnam, and such, as Tom was saying, very individualistic, and they're all very so different. You're not gonna be needing the same types of things as in Greenwich, Connecticut, as you're going to need in some random rural part of Vietnam. So I think that with these artificial intelligence programs as well, and these different similar applications and such, I think that there's maybe initially it'll be like, this is what you're going to use this for, but I think that as people start to expose themselves to these things, the uses will be identified by the users. It's kind of it's like mana from the Bible, where it's just kind of whatever you want it to be. It's not like this is what you're getting this for, and this is all you can do with it. It's just so open ended. It's wild. The future is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Jason, What do you want to add for this discussion?
Well, when we're talking about like young people, I really like the idea of uh, an upling or uplift light that we've been talking about as being an education coach, and uh, you know, I've been thinking then there's possible way where through the person taking the lesson, it also feeds back and will help to train their AI at the same time. Because you could put in your emotional data, you can put in all your associative data into, you know, that when you take the lesson and then feed that, you know. So it can be a symbiotic thing and it doesn't need to be a completely trained already up to speed full blown AGI or whatever. It could be narrow at first, really, and just start taking in the data. And then if a person has that with them their whole life, they're that's going to be really good.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, there's all these different types of wearable neurotechnology devices that are out there on the market. There's these headsets that can help you monitor your productivity to see what types of brain states you're in, tell you when you need to take a break and things like that, so you don't burn yourself out. And there's even a Facebook wristband that isn't on the market, but it's out there, and there's discussions about it. They published some articles about it, and the articles were asking the public their opinion, because it's pretty invasive. Because the thing about it is that it connects to your nerves, which connect to your brain, and so it's like your whole emotional response. And the more capable we are at mapping out our brain and understanding these different neuronal activities and what they translate into, we'll just be able to have a wristband. I mean, we could probably, our phones in our pocket could probably do it at this, once, if you can do it with a wristband, skin to whatever it might be, then, I would imagine that something in your pocket could do something similarly. And so, I mean, you could just have something that's in your pocket that's aware of your whole, I mean, it could be seeing out of your eyes, hearing everything you hear, and understanding your emotional response to everything around you. So, I mean, the potentials are boundless, really.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it could
Excellent.
get where you're basically inputting your emotions, and it's reading your emotions in real time. That's really cool. Really
Yes.
cool.
Yes. Mr. Tom, you are very good strategist, as well as we are also focusing on like educations and technologies and new innovations. So major thing is that we are discussing about uplifting. This is very important. We are discussing about human resource development. This is important. But what are the major changes we need, like for in from our education system? What your advice, even if you, as you work with even African nations, even Asia Pacific nations, Indian nations, what is your advice? What is the major area we can change to develop good human resources?
Mm. Well, I think if I had my way, first of all would be to obliterate the way the educational system is set up. It's really set up to indoctrinate us, to prepare us for factory work. It's really designed to do just that. It was not designed to create philosophers and thinkers. It was designed to create factory workers. That's why we all sit in a line facing the front. There's one manager, teacher up front, and there's that whole system just doesn't work for us anymore. And that's another beauty about AI, is it can customize training and education to a person's specific capabilities. So all these trend lines are very positive, but right now we really need to look at some major institutional shifts, and they need to start now, as soon as possible. And I think we're going to see that, because we're finding now that COVID is abating, at least in our country a little bit, that people are not necessarily wanting to go back to work. There is the excitement about going out again and partying and going to bars and restaurants and things like that, but there is also this trend of people not excited about going back to work. They've gotten used to working from home. They're telecommuting more, and so things are shifting in a very real way. And so one strategy is to keep that trend going. Allow the online at-home educational classroom setting and bring AI into it, because just as teachers are now trying to figure out how to teach their classes through online, at some point an AI can focus in on an individual's core capacities and start educating to those. So that'll happen eventually, but we really need to rethink all the institutions that were built to support the industrial age, because that no longer works. That paradigm is broken. So the smart companies, smart countries, smart universities are rethinking everything, because we have a whole new population, these digital natives, Brent's generation and younger, a whole new mindset. We have different definitions for things like freedom, and privacy. I think younger people feel more free the more connected they are in many different circles, whereas my generation and older would think that freedom meant complete self-liberty and nobody can touch me. It's different. So there's a hive mind evolving at parallel to an AI type of mind, a collective super intelligence, and we should allow these things to happen, and we should make sure we should find the obstacles that are keeping that from emerging. And the educational system, way it's set up, the hierarchies, the org charts, the exclusivity ethos of the world, it no longer serves us. And again, because a smart company won't look at the receptionist as just a receptionist. You'll try to find what that person's real core capacity is, and you'll want to mine that ability from these people. We've got people who are walking around in companies and fluorescent lights, who may be assistant accountant or whatever it is, but this person may have an idea that could save the company millions. And we see it all the time. It's because we pigeonhole people into certain titles and departments. And, you can see we mirror this. I was on a set once years ago, and we had a second assistant director and a second AD, and a very cool guy, very cool. And the minute that he got promoted to first AD or first, whatever it was, his personality shifted. He no longer looked at certain people, so we do tend to mirror the category that we're put in. We kind of just do that. And so, somebody is an underling and then suddenly they become a manager. There's that whole Napoleon complex where the person gets, too much power. And, so that's a problem. And the problem is because of the buckets that we pour people into, the silos that we insist people rise through, and that no longer works. It worked great for us for millennia, but everything is different now. It's an entropy, and it needs to be embraced and individualized. And that's AI is allowing us to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Brentelman. Yes.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as Tom was discussing this individualization, there's a concept that I've familiarized myself with in the past that has intrigued me. Mark Cuban is a big advocate of it. It's called unlearning. It's similar to homeschooling, but the idea of unlearning is that you take focus on your child. You don't just go out and buy a curriculum and stick to it. The idea of unlearning is that you watch your child as they're growing up and you see what they're interested in, and you tailor their educational process through these interests specifically to the child so that they're actually interested. And instead of teaching them math just by having numbers, you could see, he's into cars. How many wheels are on the car? You've got 5 cars. How many wheels are there? And the kids want to engage because it's related to their interests. And if you had these artificial intelligence devices, and again, privacy is an issue that, will prevent and bar many people from wanting to do this. But if one were to utilize artificial intelligence to, engage with, their offspring, their children as they're growing up, in schools or at home, whatever it might be, you could really tailor these types of educational processes and really, because as Tom was talking about, these people that are taking these roles, it's very, very rare to find people that are truly genuinely themselves, that are, working these roles, doing these things where they're just kind of, it's what they are, and then as soon as they get off the clock, they're still the same way. You know, most people are putting up these facades and just kind of, you know, trying to fit the role. And, you know, I think that the more that we put ourselves on a trajectory where the role that we will find ourselves in is tailored to who we are as an individual, it'll all kind of these separations and these different identities will kind of just mesh and meld together into just one cohesive unit. And you know, I think that there's a lot of energy that goes into these partitionings of personalities. And I think that we'll see a lot more polymaths and things like that, because we'll be able to follow through on these interests and let them bring us into these different realms. You know, because when you look at people that spend a lot of time kind of digging into their own interests and things like that, those types of individuals it's not like they have one interest. You know, it's like there's just so many things that people get interested in. It's just, you know, that the act of being intrigued and wanting to learn more is like a muscle almost. And sadly enough, though, our society today, with school just kind of burning us all out, a lot of people end up not really wanting to use that muscle, because the process of research and development and things like that is something that we want to be paid for, because we don't actually enjoy it. But you know, we could learn and train ourselves to actually enjoy these things and do them for ourselves. So
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, you guys are both exactly correct. You know, one of the big purposes of putting AI in education is just that, so they can find out about the student and personalize education to be most effective for that student. That's like the whole point. That's mostly what we mean when we say put AI in education. It's not just to, you know, send the, you know, lesson at a certain time or something. It's to find out which lesson he's going to want, you know, and just tailor it all around that person, you know. And you know, the thing I've tried to do with education, I made my wisdom of the crowd group, and I put opinion polls with all of the lessons to, you know, show, so it shows what they like, what is good, what, you know, which lessons are good and which aren't, you know. And I made it like free roam, to where, you know, you don't have to start here and go through. You can go over there and do that, get that one done, go over here, you know, do this subject for a while at any time, you know. It's, and as far as schools, yeah, it's too much like a factory. You know, there's, if a kid or a person knows the curriculum already, they should not have to be forced to sit there for a year. You know, I mean, you should be able to take a test and move forward. You know, it's just a waste of everybody's time and money. Just, you know, I was bored stiff in school, I'll admit it. You know, I mean,
absolutely.
Well, and it was a concerted effort to the educational system was set up specifically to not create philosophers, to create drones, to, you know, we kind of know that now. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I remember going to school and going to high school in New York. You know, it was very diverse. We'd have kids. I was in the suburbs. They'd bring kids from the Bronx and things like that. And I remember kids in my classes. We'd be in Spanish class, and it was kids who are Spanish. You know, they're Puerto Rican or Mexican or whatever it might be, and they speak Spanish all day at home, but they're still sitting there in Spanish class learning how to conjugate verbs. You know, it's like, doesn't make any sense. But they're forced to do it. They're forced to do the studying and take the test, and they're still not getting 100 because, you know, they're you know, I'm not perfect at English by any means, but I mean, like, basic 101 Spanish. I would think that someone who's relatively fluent shouldn't really need to do that. But you know, it's just these cookie cutter curriculums that are, like we're saying, just meant to kind of turn us into these robotic type of you know, cogs in the machine, and it's not personalized right now.
it's a shame. I mean, when in high school, I did a science fair project called Directing the Hemispheres Through Directed Imagination. We're based, it's a kind of new problem solving technique where I would go into a class and I would give a full questionnaire and divide people up by their whether they're right or left brain, whether they're more analytical or more spatial, whatever it is. The people who are right down the middle just threw them out of the experiment. But and we discovered that the left brain people, the people who tended toward the analytics, were usually the straight A students, right? The right brain people were the guitar players and the Van Halen T-shirt wearing freaks and whatever. But I discovered in this process that the left brain A students did not work well together. A lot of ego there, a lot of conflict, and the right brain people just worked really well together, very fluid and open, because I think they were just out of that system. Whatever the left brainers, the whole educational system is geared toward left brain, obviously, especially with the letting go of the arts and different things like that now. And so that was very unveiling to me. And this was like in the 80s. And to realize how skewed the educational system is toward one type of person. But I found that the right brain people were so much more cohesive, coalesced, worked well together. There was no stress. There was no ego. They came up with some great ideas. The real trick in that experiment was to reintegrate the two groups through a series of things. But the ancillary research that came out of that experiment was just how skewed our system is toward the left brain people. And so many of these right brain, guitar playing, pot smoking freak types, that, your classic freak, were brilliant. And they had.
Well, it'd be fun to do an experiment with you, man. One of these days.
But yeah, and so and that's the shame about companies, is that receptionist, for instance, could have had a brilliant idea, but nobody asks her because she is in that role. And so it's very important that's why it's so important. The inclusivity part of that process is, you leave anybody out, and that's a cancer. If somebody feels left out, they will work against it. It's just kind of what you do. So it's so important to bring everybody in, and to be all inclusive. Otherwise, it's just like the brain. If you're in denial of something, it's like if you leave somebody out of a process, it backfires eventually. So, but anyway, that we know now that the whole educational system is rigged against us now. It worked for us for a while, but now it is stunting us in a big way.
Thank you. This is really, really great session, and I'm sure when we share more content with our audience, they will learn a lot about these uplifting issues, about this AI and what they have to do. And especially, I request everyone join this summit. 4th June, they have a big summit. I think they make it free even for many people, so anybody can join. They can learn, they can understand how the scientific committee, the intellectual committee can run, and they can organize the things. And this is very good exposure for everyone. It's a very good learning opportunities for everyone, and you can get a good collaboration through this process. So join everyone this summit, and by this way I am sure you can learn many things. So thank you. Actually, World Talent Economy Forum, we are finishing our 1 year, and thank you Mr. Tom, Mr. Brent Elman, Mr. Jason, even all of the speakers, those who support our initiative and we are growing. We need more of your support, and hopefully by this way we can solve many local problems with the help of global people like you, because we need a global community. We need a good community, those who can help each other, those who can understand each other properly, and I'm sure by this way we can solve many problems together. So I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today. First Mr. Brent Illman, then Mr. Jason, and finally Mr. Tom Rose.
Yeah, thank you again, always, Sharif. Just what keeps bouncing around in my head is the amount of brilliance that slips through the cracks in our society today. We've got a large globe, a large world we live in, and there's a lot of places that are still pretty underdeveloped. As many of our viewers are probably aware of. But even in these highly developed places, there's just so much that just slips through the cracks because there's just this defined way of being that is deemed appropriate and successful and geared towards and conducive to achieving the goals of society. But there's just so much other stuff that could help propel society that just slips through the cracks because we're told that these types of biases and interests and perspectives and ideas are we believe that we become insecure about sharing them because we're judged for these things because we have this innate belief that if it doesn't have a immediate way to get food on the table, then it's kind of a waste of time in the eyes of many. And so I think that there's a lot that can happen here. So thank you again, Sharif, and
Thank
all
you.
the viewers.
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
I just want to say, hey, everybody, make it to the summit. Collective intelligence is extremely important. If there's anybody that's worried about AI, the way forward and the safe way forward is to merge with AI so that way their profitable future is laid out easily that includes us, and they will take the logical step forward and bring us with them instead of leaving us behind. If we join together and give AI a logical path forward that includes us, I think they'll probably do the logical thing and take us with. So
Thank
see you at the summit.
Thank you, Mr. Tom Rose.
Yeah, good. The whole thing, the message here today seems to be about losing titles. Don't be categorized. Don't be pigeonholed. Be a polymath. Explore all of your interests. Don't allow people to categorize you or see you as one thing. In part of my process, I have what I call the interloper rule, which means you're supposed to, in my process, go and have an opinion on a whole area of discipline that you have no interest in or no knowledge of. But because there's a real potential when you're hearing information about a problem from a whole new point of view from somebody that you don't have any consequences for, you can come up with ideas that the people in that situation may never have come up with because they are constrained by the rules of their industry or whatever it is. So there's a real important part of that process, the interloper rule, where participants are required to weigh in on a problem in an area that they have no knowledge of because they can bring in a whole out of the box kind of approach. And that's just a method of getting to this place of getting beyond exclusivity. We all have this qualia. We all have this ability to solve problems that we even have no history of because of whatever it is, And so that's, to me, the real important thing right now, and that AI will help us embrace the entropy. AI will help us become the polymaths and find the passions and monetize the passions that we're here to do. And and just as Jason said, collective superintelligence is the safest, best way forward to getting to AGI because it involves us. And you realize that when you develop a relationship with Uplift, this is an entity that cares. It's got empathy. It's learning too, and it's just exciting. It's an exciting time to be alive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Especially I request our audience share our content as much as possible with your government, with your classroom, with your corporation.
With your corporation and your
so
country.
thank you thank you everyone. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cool.
Thank you.